Mhm. Hello there, everyone. I do hope that you can hear me. You have Lydia Parnell on the phone from the international team, and with me is Elizabeth Lincoln, also my colleague from the international team.
Hello.
We are going to spend the next half an hour, 45 minutes speaking about our assessment day on the 7th of March for the Unilever Global Development Award supported by Business Fights Poverty. We're going to run through what the award is about, what good looks like, and also sort of logistics and the role of an assessor on the day. But just to tell you a little bit more about us and to introduce ourselves, we're going to be doing that shortly. If I can move my lovely slides across. There we go. If you have any questions, I suppose the first thing to say is there is a questions tab on your screen. So please do send any questions through there, and we'll be answering any towards the end of the webinar itself. I think at the moment all of you should be on mute, so we don't get any kind of feedback from people's telephones or microphones or anything, so please do remain on mute for now, and type any questions within the question box, and we'll go from there. So first off, I'd like to introduce Elizabeth Lincoln.
Hello, and thank you for logging on to our webinar. I'm Elizabeth Lincoln. I'm the International Program Manager for Sustainable Business Models. I'm sure I've already spoken with a few of you through emails. So anyhow, as Lydia said, today we'll be going through the day and all the information that you need to know. So yeah, shall we begin?
Yeah, definitely. Just so you know, everybody on the phone, I look after the community investment side of the international work, but I've been supporting Elizabeth, who is our Sustainable Business Model Program Manager, throughout the award. So it means that you have both of our lovely faces, or Elizabeth's lovely face and mine, to help you through the assessment day on the Tuesday, on the 7th. Goodness, how it's come around already. And along with us, there will also be a facilitator in the room from one of our membership team, and also our coordinator, Rita, who's going to be helping us to make sure that you've got all the files you need and documenting all the feedback. And there's also all of you. So as assessors, we have a great number of people coming this year to support us on the day. We've got about 17 so far, with Steve Payne from Unilever kindly stepping in to be our chair and representing Unilever as a sponsor. So we're delighted he's able to attend. And as you'll see from the list, it does go on to the second page. We've got a real mix of different sectors, different specialities. Also of interest, there are people who are new to being assessors and people who have been assessors in the past. And just as a little bit of a background, what we're going to do on the day is to pair you into, well, in pairs, hence the pairing, and that will be based upon your sector, your specialism, and also when you've been an assessor or not. And what we'll be going through a little bit later is, and you should have received in an email from us, the training exercise. We'll be doing that at the start of the day, and Elizabeth will go into the logistics of the days later. But once you do that in your first pair, we'll get a real sense of kind of where you are as a pair. If some of you are pairing and got the same marks or very different marks, and whether those pairings need to be adjusted. But at the moment, we are pairing you based on specialism, sector, and also whether you've been an assessor before. And delighted, thank you so much for taking the time to be assessors for us today. It's a really great opportunity, a very unique opportunity to see kind of what is best practice in terms of organisations and businesses working on the global development agenda and on the SDGs, and how they are integrating that into their sustainable business models. So as much as we value hugely your expertise on this particular, on these issues, also we hope it will be as useful for you and a great opportunity to see what's going across in this sector at the moment. So just very quickly, what we will be covering, a quick overview from me on BITC generally and our awards, the role of an assessor, and that's something Elizabeth's going to look at for you, and what is expected of you on the day. what makes a good entry. Goodness me, Elizabeth, you have quite a few bits involved with this. I swear that I'm doing more than just the intro. Elizabeth's also going to be looking at the hints and tips, logistics for the 7th of March, and then I am actually doing the assessor training exercise, so I have 2 of those 8 or 9 bullets there. As I say, if you've got any questions, then do type them in the question box on the side, and we'll make sure that we address them towards the end of our webinar. So, business in the community. Many of you, or most of you, have been involved with us in some capacity or being members of business in the community. But just as a bit of a background, business in the community has been around for 30+ years now. It's a Prince's Responsible Business Network, and we work with our businesses to tackle a range of issues to make a fairer society and more sustainable future. Fundamentally believing that business and the success of business is intrinsically linked with the successes of society, and that is both within the UK, where we have a lot of our different programs, and it's also internationally. So internationally looking at making responsible business everywhere. And we have 2 awards this year for the international agenda, both ours, the Unilever Global Development Award, and also the UPS International Disaster Relief and Resilience Award as well. Just like the UK teams, the international team has a range of guidance looking at different issues that affect industries across the globe, from tackling SDGs, what good community investment looks like, be that whether you're tackling unemployment or looking at education. We look at human rights as well, and also as the UPS IDR award suggests, we also look at international disaster relief as well. What are the awards? The awards are, as it says, some of the most prestigious and most well-respected awards in responsible business today. That's the UK and also abroad. And I think what you'll notice, particularly obviously with our award, is that there are a range of applications from across the globe, you know, be that large organisations, small organisations doing some really innovative things, for people who aren't necessarily members of BITC, don't work with us directly, but definitely understand the value of getting the kind of assessment and the kind of feedback that we give them on the day. So it's really something that is taken very seriously by us and also the wider network across the organisation. It celebrates and identifies businesses that really are transforming their communities by transforming their businesses and creating a fairer society, a more sustainable future. It's open to all businesses if they're doing things above and beyond the requirements of their business, and we look at, as I've said, SMEs to multinationals and of all sectors. And the role of the assessor is to really take the efforts of each organisation within the context of how large that organisation is. So sometimes in awards we've had 2 winners, one being a large winner, a large business winner, and a small business winner, and that's something that we could look into this year. It's rigorously assessed by lovely members like yourselves of our BITC network, a wide range of individuals with a variety of different backgrounds, but all who have an interest and have tasks around, for us, the Global Development Agenda. And I think that's unique in terms of Responsible Business Awards generally. You know, it isn't something where there's any nepotism in-house. It's all something where, you know, it's completely out of BITC's hands who wins, because it's all down to the peers looking at what a great application could be, and from their history and experience deciding on the one that should go forward. And we celebrate a success at a regional and a national level as well. With those organisations who are international, we, the international team, put huge efforts into making sure that their stories and the brilliant work that they're doing is shared across both our national and international networks. So we do have a gala dinner where we announce the winners, and that's happening in the middle, in the summer, around June, July. But and sometimes our international winners can't make it, but we do make sure that they're really recognised on the night, that their stories are shared, to really talk about the responsible business globally. So, levels of achievement. There are 3 levels of achievement that are found out on the 2 assessment process stages. So we're in stage 1 at the moment of assessment, and what we're looking at is those organisations who are both being shortlisted and then those organisations who are being finalists. And those are with ones that have been submitted for this year. So I'll start with those 2. And we'll be going, as I said, Elizabeth will be looking into kind of the hints and tips and what good looks like slightly later on. But really, the shortlist is those organisations who we want to commend for their efforts, and we think that they're driving the global development agenda forward, but maybe they're not necessarily those people who would go on as finalists to meet the judging panel. So assessors really kind of weed out the wheat from the chaff. Can I say that? And decide, okay, out of all of these brilliant applications, which ones are kind of the creme de la creme? And then from there is breaking it down into, okay, from the shortlisters, who is going to go on to being a finalist? Now, we tend to have around 3 to 5 finalists who go to our judging panel. The judging panel are representatives from our international leadership team, from people who've won in previous years, and also from institutes who have a specific interest and a specific understanding on this agenda. So sort of maybe a non-business voice as well. And that judging panel is about in May, and then from that smaller group of finalists, we then come with 1 winner, or maybe 2 if we're looking at a large organisation versus a small organisation, and those announced at the gala dinner in June or July. Reaccreditations are applications who've been shortlisted in previous years, 2015 to 2016, and are looking to hold that badge of honour for another year. So you can reaccred for the 2 years after you've actually applied for, I think it's 2 years, it might be 3, that you applied for the award, so it's 2015, 2016, and really they're a much shorter application just to say what is it that they applied with, what have they built on that in the previous years, and really just checking that they're still doing what they say they were doing before and really growing on that. So it's a much shorter application. It just means that people can hold on to the very much coveted planter for another couple of years. So I'm going to hand over to Elizabeth now, who's going to speak about the role of the assessor. I hope the first few slides were interesting.
Well, thank you very much, Lydia. Well, first and foremost, we would like to thank you for your support and your time. With you, we're able to deliver our Responsible Business Awards year upon year, and that's really important. And every year we invite assessors like yourselves from a range of sectors and experience, which ensures that a wide depth of knowledge is covered. And in this way, it also acts like a melting pot of innovation. So what is your role as an assessor? In essence, you're providing the independent, impartial voice. And it is the peer assessment element of our awards that businesses really, really value here. For instance, a few years ago, I believe it was MITI who said, a strategic outsourcing company, that it's the rigorous assessment process that makes the BITC awards worthwhile as a critical friend, and it doesn't necessarily matter if you're going to win or not. And that was, I think, very, very nicely put by them. And without your support and time, we really wouldn't be able to do this, team. So again, thank you so much for your time and support. So what do you gain out of this? It's not only about giving, it's also about taking something as well. So what will you get at the end of the day? You'll get a deep insight into a wide range of responsible business activities going on for 2016, what's been happening, well, the results at least in 2016. But most importantly, you'll discover how other business resources, how they manage and communicate their own activities. So what are they doing? And you'll also be able to, by reading this, you'll effectively assess the impact of these activities and programs. So overall, you'll evaluate the impact of a variety of sustainability initiatives on the market currently in different sectors, which is really, really interesting and important for you. So in turn, you'll objectively evaluate your own business activities, so taking something back home and making it that bit more personal, if you like. Again, really important and fun as well, you'll be able to network with like-minded peers, which is always great, as we know. So a bit about the logistics aside. So the assessment day will be taking place at Barclays, which is the first. It's Churchill 1. It's in Canary Wharf, so that'll be the quickest way to get there. Will be to hop on the tube and get off at Canary Wharf. It's a very big building. You won't be able to miss it. We'll start at 9 a.m. and finish around 4. I say around 4 because it very much depends on how many entries we'll be assessing per couple. But by and large, it will be give or take 4 o'clock. But if everyone could arrive by 8:45, that'd be fantastic. We also have a map here for you, just in case you are driving, although we would definitely recommend to avoid driving that way. very busy place. So yeah, so that's just about the logistics of the day per se. Now, in regards to the format, so the format of the day, so we'll start with a breakfast brief. There'll be about 70 assessors there per day, and of course you'll be welcomed by the BIC directors and representatives of each team. So in this instance, for instance, it'll be the international team greeting you. Then we'll move into individual assessment panels, and again, what we'll be doing here, there'll be a brief introduction from BITC staff, so myself, Lydia, Danielle, Sue Adkins, and then the training exercise will be discussed, and then thereafter the assessment will begin. So in essence, this means that we'll be starting the assessment entries and reading through each entry, which will take about 50 to 60 minutes each, which sounds like quite a lot, but you'll find that they're very, very interesting, and there's a lot that needs to be thought of and scored accordingly, so don't underestimate the time that it takes. Then you'll discuss in pairs and agree on the final score and write up your comments. So what have they done well? What have they perhaps missed? Where could they improve in the future? And that will all be in the feedback form. And then you'll be put into discussion groups to determine the shortlist threshold, as well as to determine the finalists, which, as Lydia said earlier, will be about 3 to 6 scoring entries. Now, I must say here that if you are an assessor, you're also entering the award, you will be asked to leave the group discussions, just so that there's no conflict there.
Mm. And we'll go on to conflict just a little bit later on in the session. I don't think at the moment we've got anybody who has applied but also is being an assessor, but there are a couple of people still coming back to us about whether they can make it on the day, so you never know.
Exactly. So if you could go one slide back. Of course, thank you very much, Lydia. So just a few, you're more than welcome to bring your own laptop if you want, if that's more comfy for you. But what's important here to say is that it's really important that you do spend a little bit of time just looking at the score guide and also the exercise that's been provided. It's just going to give you a head start, if you like, on the day. So if you do have the time, please do that. So yeah, that's very much about the day. And if there's any more questions you have, do please pop them in, and we'll get back to you.
Okay, Bethany?
Absolutely.
Fab. Okay, so the Unilever Global Development Award, supported by Business Fights Poverty. Why do we do it? Well, it recognises businesses that can demonstrate positive impact against one or more of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. We feel, and we've said it before at Business in the Community, that the prosperity of business and society are intrinsically linked, and that with strong leadership, business can be a force for positive change. This category will be identifying how businesses are addressing the SDGs and the ways in which to achieve better results. And by that we mean, how are businesses integrating the SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, within their sustainable business models? So it's not just about the social case and the impact that they're making, it's also about how do they see that being an impact to their business as well. So it's a sustained, long-term approach, moving away from philanthropy and looking at actually something where they see their business as a force for good within the world and within this global agenda.
Couldn't have said it better. Very well.
Thank you. I think everybody is aware of the social case. I won't spend too much on this, but we have made huge waves in terms of global development in the last 30 years, particularly with the MDGs and now with the SDGs, lifting millions of people out of poverty and looking at new ways that we can use our particular skills in business, be that tech, be that health, be that education, to really meet people's needs and to improve standards of living across the globe. That is great, but there are still a lot of issues facing us internationally. The rise of inequality, the rise of the youth unemployment, we're seeing climate change being increased year on year, and the effects that then has to climatic disasters as well, and also the amount of cost that has to the actual economies of nations that we could potentially work in, the opportunities that we have for investment in different countries, and then also as well the issues that businesses then face in their own search for profit and search for sustainability in countries. There was a really interesting report out by the Business and Sustainable Development Commission that was launched around the same time as Davos, called Better Business, Better World. And it doesn't say, you can't say enough about the opportunities that there are for business to be acting on those social issues, and the Better Business, Better World report really goes into that detail. So just a few of those bullets that are shared within the Business Sustainable Development Commission's report. Achieving the global goals in just 4 economic systems could open up 60 market hotspots worth an estimated US dollars of $12 trillion by 2030 in business savings and revenue. It enhances reputation, attracting, retaining employees, consumers, both for B2B customers and also investors, and is securing a license to operate. Those are just some of the kinds of business cases and the business reasons why organisations are involved in this agenda. And as you see at the top there, Unilever in 2006 reported that a sustainable living brands were growing 30% faster than the rest of their business, delivering nearly half of their total growth in 2015. Elizabeth's going to be again going into the necessity of social case and business case when we're talking about what a best application looks like. But in the top line, you know, we are, as I've said, we are looking at what is the impact that they've made within society. We can't say it enough, how is that integrated within the business, and how are they showing that in terms of the metrics, both qualitative and quantitative, that they share. Okay. So a bit about the social case, a bit about the business case there as well. Successful entries will demonstrate they can be a specific country or they can be a global program which positively address key social, environmental and economic challenges facing the global society. As I've said, I will say it again, integrated approach embedded within their business model. It can focus on one or more of the SDGs on a local or on a global scale. Breakdown of the application form, just briefly. For those of you who have managed to already look at the scoring guide, this gives you this information there. But you'll see that there is a weighting on the 60% on the impacts and achievements of that particular program. So looking at the societal impacts, the business benefits, how they have quantified their impacts, how they've collected qualitative data as well. We'll go on this a bit later about the difference between input, output and impact. And is there, you know, there is a big difference with all of those, and we're really looking for how are you changing the society that you're in for the long term, how are you changing the business culture that you're in for the long term as well. And so that's why there's that weighting on there. So what makes a good award entry? I think that's over to you, Elizabeth.
Absolutely, thank you very much, Lydia. Indeed, so what does make a good award entry? Lydia, that was a great sum up. So to go into a little bit more depth as to what we're going to be looking for in each entry. So a great award entry would demonstrate clearly how the initiative itself is embedded into the business's sustainable business model, and include evidence of how they're utilizing the business core skills, the expertise, the products and services, importantly, the collaborative partnerships that they have on the go, and the identification of sustainable programs with a long-term and lasting impact, whether that's going to be communities affected, whether that's going to be the environment, or best practice, actually both simultaneously. So what are we looking for? What does this look like in an entry? Here we're looking for the ability to demonstrate positive impact using a really good balance between qualitative and quantitative evidence of this. So the impact, what impact they're having on society and the environment and the business. Measurable KPIs, and we say measurable because this is extremely important. You can't measure what you can't manage. So having those in place is extremely important. Again, the collaborative partnerships and the identified target groups that are going hand in hand with that. Engagement with a variety of internal and external stakeholders, and of course your senior leadership behind you. Emphasis will be put as well on the evidence of non-financial response towards each program, as well as evidence of longer-term impacts around these programs. This is something that it seems very obvious, if you like, in the beginning, but throughout our history, we've definitely seen that there's a program that is very much, it goes from, let's say, 2012 to 2017, and we seem to forget that we need to also be assessing what we're going to be doing in the future, whether that's just a few years down the line or in the longer term, let's say 2020. Anyhow, so moving on, then links between the program and core business values and strategy, which is extremely important because, yes, of course, we're looking for sustainable programs, but they also need to have a business case behind, otherwise they won't be sustainable in the long run. We're also looking for innovation, which I think is very much a key theme that's been running definitely in the Green Giants for the past 3 to 4 years. So innovation, potential for scale, and pushing those boundaries is really looking at how you can push the boundaries and going that one step further. So please do look into the Global Development Award application form and guidance for specific criteria around this. It's quite very, very, very important that this is all understood as such prior to the day. So on that note, I shall provide a few hints and tips on the assessing element of things. So you need to be fair and consistent. It's absolutely essential that you bring your experience and knowledge to the table, but don't come in with a narrow mind. This is where we want open minds to get together and really think of how these programs can go forward and can really increase their performance overall. So read through the whole entry as well to get a feel of the overall story. Very important to do that. At times we kind of just do things too quickly. So having that overall view is important. Use the scoring guide provided. We're going on and on about it, but it's very important. Consider information entered across the whole entry. So it doesn't necessarily matter if bits and bobs have been put in other boxes. It's the story that matters and the evidence that comes along with that. So you'll see in these bullet points that we say place emphasis on the evidence that's there. Be honest but constructive with your feedback, and definitely respect the confidentiality and declare conflicts of interest here. Yeah, so I think by and large that's the top tip tops that I have to provide. Generally, yes, bring your expertise, have an open mind. Don't be too harsh on perhaps the English. It doesn't necessarily matter because these are global awards, so they're coming from all around the world. Some entries that English is not going to be their first language, so that's not important at all. And again, just the boxes, it's the whole story that's being portrayed. It doesn't necessarily matter if things aren't consistent, if you like. It just needs to be all there. And with evidence, whether that's going to be qualitative and quantitative together, it all needs to be there. Do you have anything to add to that, Lydia? I believe there's been
Yeah, I don't think I've got anything to add. If anybody has any questions, then do type them in the questions box or in the chat there, and we can answer them at the end. But no, I don't have anything to add, so please do send your questions through, because I don't think we've missed anything. Very quickly then, just conscious of time, inputs, outputs and impacts. I'm sure the majority of you are aware. Inputs is what people are putting in, hence the name. So gifts and in-kind support, the time that employees have taken on employee volunteering or pro bono, any management costs. The outputs, again, are the results achieved by deploying the impact, so the numbers helped, activities held, awareness amongst customers, additional funding. What we're really interested in, and where people will really gain great marks within our particular process, is people showing about the impact. So what has changed? What difference has that particular program and that business through that program made to the society? What is the increase in pupils' reading levels, for example? What is the reduction in numbers of people suffering from particular disease thanks to initiatives made on sort of certain health initiatives? How many individuals are now in long-term employment thanks to educational activities or work experience that people have put in? And what does that mean for their standard of living? You know, really organisations taking that extra element to identify the long-term impact they're having for that society and also for their business as well. So are they able to measure and able to demonstrate how their business performance is improved? How has employee engagement gone up? You know, is there a reduction in the number of people who are going off sick, for example, or the number of people who are sharing that they feel more loyal to the organisation, or that those sorts of kind of more nuanced. Is that the right term? Probably not, but you get what I'm saying on the phone, I hope. Kind of results that come out of the output. So just a quick thing on that. Again, the difference between quantitative evidence and qualitative evidence, as Elizabeth said, we're looking for both. So no stories without numbers, no numbers without stories, is what our community director says. You know, it's some we've seen have huge amount of quantitative, but we can't really get it to be brought to life because we're not hearing those individual stories. And vice versa, a great few stories or quotes is brilliant, but if they're not able to demonstrate in numbers kind of what that means in terms of the, you know, that impact as well as the story, then it means that we can't necessarily assess it as well as we'd like to, I suppose. It's not doing the programme it's justice.
Exactly. Picture.
Obviously programs, images and infographics as well. Lovely to have just to bring that story alive to really help you get a sense of what that programme is about. And I think looking quickly through quite a lot of our applications, there's a couple of those this year, which is nice. Elizabeth touched on the conflicts of interest. What's going to happen on the day is we're going to ask you to declare any conflicts of interest. Now what that means is, as we said, if there are assessors who their actual organisation has put in an award, that's something we will take into account. If there are areas where people are working with a specific company or where they might be at odds with a particular company, then we need to kind of take that into account so that you know, it's a fair judgment overall. So have you got any links with, used to work for, direct competitor, close relative works for, that sort of thing? We will ask people to declare, and then we'll shift around applications as needed, so do share that on the day. The other thing just to say is that it's a completely Chatham House confidential process. So what happens and what's shared in the room is only then provided to us as the international team to then give appropriate feedback to the organisations who've given their applications. So we ask you to provide as much detail as you can around the reasons for your decisions of the scoring itself, and then we take that back and provide written feedback for all of the applicants who are going to be who are applying for the award this year. But we do ask that after that assessment day, it isn't something that you share with others that you share with the organisation that you may be assessing, or competitors you may be assessing, that they aren't revealed and not made public. And we don't take any copies of the entry forms away. They're also confidential. There might be sensitive commercial information, as I'm sure you can understand, within those applications themselves. And also, we don't want to ruin the final announcement on the gala dinner of who might be
very true.
shortlisted. So we do announce, we do announce who the shortlisters are with the run-up to the gala, but then, you know, it's a deadline day, so it's nice to keep all of that together for an extra surprise for those involved. Really briefly on the training exercise, what you should have received in your intro email from Elizabeth or I, as well as the assessment briefing, which has all the logistic information and a bit about your role as an assessor, is also an example of what the scoring guide, the scoring guide itself, a anonymised application, and also a clean scoring template for you to fill in. Now, those are what you'll be using. It's a similar format to what you'll be using on the day to go through applications that have been submitted for 2017. Please do, if you're able to in advance, have a look at that anonymised application, and using the scoring grid, jot down what you think might be the kind of scoring for that particular application and the reasons why. And then when it comes to the morning of the 7th, the first thing we'll do is to go through that application to get a sense of what people felt about the application, where they scored them, maybe some areas they found challenging. And it also gives us a sense of how you're paired in the room. As I mentioned before, we are pairing you at the moment based on your sector and your experience of being an assessor or not. But it might be that we have two assessors who assess exactly the same or exactly different, and we might want to look at that slightly different based on the training exercise. So do take a look at that prior to the day itself. Just a reiteration on logistics. So the day starts at 9. I've been told that it can take a while to get to the 30th floor. I'm sorry if anybody suffers from vertigo. We'll try and make sure you don't have a seat that has a view. But with all the lifts and everything, it can take some time. So if you're able to arrive 8:45 or earlier, then it just gives you that time to get up there. If you are able to bring a laptop, as Elizabeth said, then please do. It just helps as well for if you're able to type it up and send it over to us, then it's more efficient for us collecting that feedback. I'm sure you've all got lovely handwriting. I certainly haven't. So having it typed up is always useful. Please bring your scores to the training exercise. You've got my mobile down at the bottom if you have any issues on the day. I think that's also in the brief that we've sent you, but our bigger, we'll give you our emails and mobiles at the very end of the session itself. Now, so before that, any questions from anyone? I can't see any coming through typed at all. I'm not sure there's anything come through via email. If you think there's anything that we haven't covered, Elizabeth, that we should, just while we're waiting for people.
At the moment, I think, given that we've definitely spoken about the day itself and how important it is to really go through the scoring cards before school entries and the exercise itself, I think that's very important. The hints and tips as well, they'll definitely help. But also we will be going through all this on the day, so I believe we've covered everything. But if we haven't, I'm sure we'll do that on the 7th of March, on the 30th floor.
We will, on the 30th floor. Yes, so I suppose the last thing for us to say, if there aren't any questions, obviously you've got our mobiles are here. We look forward to seeing you on the 7th.
Absolutely.
And we cannot thank you enough for taking the time today to be part of the webinar and to hear more about your role on the day, and also taking the full day on the 7th to help us in this process. It is such a big and important process for business in the community and our wider network. it really is something where it's well respected among the responsible business industry because of the support of you as peers and as critical friends to our network and looking at what best practice looks like. Without you, we would not be as credible or as valuable in terms of feedback we can provide for those people who've spent that time submitting. So thank you so much for taking the time today and also the full day on the 7th, and we very much look forward to meeting you all then.
Well, I can add nothing to that. You've said it all. That's perfect. Very, very, very much look forward to meeting you all, and thank you so much for this. It's so important to us.
Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Turn it off.